Welcome to another edition of Inside Guyana. On behalf of the management and staff of ITV studio here in New York City, I want to thank you very much for watching our program Inside Guyana. And on behalf of our cameraman today, who is Ravi, and our producer, Prakash, we would like to let you know that our special guest in the studio today is a prominent Guyanese. He's now living in New York, and he has been very active in activities in Guyana before migrating to the United States. He has been a senior, I should say, stalwart in the People's Progressive Party, who later on, I think, for whatever reason, changed course and started to criticize, if you want to say, the People's Progressive Party, and became a member of ROAR. He was also a teacher. He was a trade unionist in the Guyana Teachers Association. He was a champion, which is very important, a champion marksman in the Guyana Defense Force. So he's a military personnel as well. And he worked in the Ministry of Finance and a lot of other things. So we have a very experienced personality in our studio here today. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the one and only Mr. Malcolm Harripaul. So welcome to our program Inside Guyana.
Namaste, Dr. Rudy Jadoopat. Namaste to all our viewers out there. I must thank you for having me in your studio today. It's my pleasure to be here, and I look forward to a very good interview by you.
Well, sir, one of the first questions is that since you mentioned Namaste, you might want to explain to our viewers what is the meaning of Namaste. I understand that Namaste means I greet
the spirit
within you.
We're all spiritual beings. We're not what you see here. We're all spiritual beings, and when you say Namaste, you're acknowledging the spirit in the other person, the good spirit in the other person.
Okay, so you have good spirit and bad spirit as well.
You do.
Okay, very good. So, Malcolm, would you be kind enough to please give our viewers a brief introduction about yourself? Tell them probably your background. You might want to say your parents or where you're from, which part of Guyana you're from, and so on. Briefly.
It's hard to say which part of Guyana I'm really from. I was born at Joanna Cecilia at the Saudi Hospital. Sorry, I was born at Saudi Hospital. And as an infant, I spent some time at Joanna Cecilia and the Esquivel Coast, but I grew up on Leg 1. That's where my nana and nanny were from, and that's where my father and my mother were from. So I grew up there. I spent time in Georgetown, attending school in Georgetown for a short while. My father was the headmaster, and we ended up moving up all over the country. So I live in Maikoni Creek. We live at Baggaville, West Bank, Demerara. I even went to school at Canal number 1 Polar at Two Brothers Primary School. But since 1973, we were domiciled on the West Bank, Demerara, at the Port Rhine area. And my mother and my brothers still live in Belladam, Port Rhine. So, you know, I've been around the countryside for a while.
Thank you very much for that brief introduction. And let us start off. You know, Guyana is going to have elections on May the 11th, which is next week, Monday, not tomorrow, but the following Monday, 1 week from tomorrow. And I see you have here your biography. You're a political activist, and you were involved very much in the political activities in Guyana on behalf of the PPP and on behalf of recently ROAR, I think, more recently. Tell us some of the things that you probably did in the past as a political activist in Guyana, and if you can please compare that with the situation right now. So if you were a PPP activist, let me put it straight up. That means you were responsible for some of the chaos that people are talking about today.
No, I'm proud to say that I'm not part of what's happening today, but I'm proud of my contribution to the struggle going back to the 1970s. I got involved in the PPP and PYO in 1976 period. I was living at Cognan Dam, Port Rhine at the time. By 1977, I was locked up and placed on 16 charges. That's during the 1977 sugar strike, the 133 days sugar strike. And during the latter 70s, I held the positions of a chairman for a PP group, of which Dr. Motilal was he was the chairman and I was the secretary, and that would be the VNUP PPP group. As regards the PYO, I was actually the VNUP district secretary of the PYO. And VNUP district extended from Windsor Forest all the way to La Grange on the West Bank, Demerara. I was very active on the streets because I was also influenced by Dr. Walter Rodney and the WPA. And although we had received instructions from the PPP not to engage in WPA activities, it was the WPA that was taking the fight to the PNC in those days. And so I also got involved in WPA activities, so much so that in 1979, I was chased by the police special squad. We were picketing in front of the High Court in support of Dr. Rodney and Dr. Rupert Rupenrine, who were on arson charges. And I was chased by members of the police special squad. I was a high school athlete, by the way. So I ran all the way to Gau, the Impex Complex on Regent Street. And I managed to run upstairs. And believe it or not, Mr. Donald Ramatar, who is now the president, he was working at Gau then. And he and Komal Chan hid me in a room. They said it's a secret room, that no one will find me in that room. But within 2 minutes, the door was broken down, and the police grabbed me and took me out of there. Of course, I suffered a beating. I couldn't walk after a while. And they took me to Brickdam. And I continued to be very active selling the Mirror newspaper around VNUP area. I wasn't deterred by such beatings.
So Malcolm, you went through all of that. You endured so much. So why did you leave the PPP?
Well, we haven't come to that as yet. We are still in the 1970s.
Okay, sorry.
You know. I had also gotten active. I was a school teacher, and I was active in the Guyana Teachers Association. And by the time I was 18 years old, I became chairman of the Central West Bank Demerara branch of the Guyana Teachers Association. And also, I automatically became an executive member of the Guyana Teachers Association. And I say this because I gained a lot of experience in those days. I got a lot of experience in organizing political work, trade union work, working amongst sugar workers, amongst teachers. And I left political work and I enlisted in the Guyana Defense Force. I applied for a cadet and I got through. And I enlisted in GDF in February 1981. And I spent almost 9 to 10 years there. I rose to the rank of a lieutenant. And very early I became a champion marksman in the GDF. I got to see a genuine champion.
Yeah, genuine champion.
Genuine champion.
Not
yes.
like some other champions.
Yes, not like other champions. Yes. You asked why I left the PPP. Well, during my tenure with the GDF, I was not active, but I was sympathetic with the PPP, of course. And when I left the GDF in the middle of 1989, I got active with the PPP again. I was very active. I did a lot of security work for them, prepared national security plans at the request of Dr. Jagan, had many meetings with Dr. Jagan and Comrade Clinton Collymore. And then, of course, the PPP won the elections in 1992, October. Immediately after that, I started to get into problems with the PPP because I realized very early that many of the promises that they had made the electorate, they were not going to keep. My major problem with them was that they were not balancing the army and police. Dr. Jagan was sworn in on a Friday evening, and the very next day, Saturday, I had a meeting with him at Freedom House. And it was made clear to me that he would not trouble the Army and Police. The Army and Police would remain as they were in terms of racial composition. And I felt there and then that that was not good, that it was a very bad decision. The second bad decision they made was to keep Larry Lewis as the police commissioner. And I think when you look at the consequences of those decisions, it's why we end up with the problems we had in 1978. It's why we end up being a drug economy today. It's why we had all the violence meted out against people of East Indian origin in the latter 90s and in the early 2000s. It's a result of the poor decisions made by the PPP. And so I wrote letters because according to the PPP, according to democratic sectionalism, you have to take up these matters within the PPP. And mind you, by then, I belonged to the same group with Donald Ramatar, Bharat Jagdeo, Barry Ramasaran, Haidar Ali, Rajendra Rampasad, Roger Lonchan. We all belong to the same group. I would raise these issues.
Those were your comrades?
Yes, we were comrades. We were very good comrades back in those days. Okay. We used to meet in Camelville by Sugar's house in Delft Street. And so, according to democratic centralism, you have to raise these matters at the party level. And of course, I had access to Dr. Jagan. But guess what? They just smile at you and then they'll do nothing. So then I have to write to the newspapers. We had the Starbuck News. And during the days of the PNC, I wrote under the name M.H. Paul. So under the PPP government in '92, after, I continued writing under the name M.H. Paul. But this time now I'm being critical of the PPP, especially of the Forest Home Affairs Minister, Feroz Mohammed, who I think was a completely incompetent. And I'm being very kind there to him. So I wrote many letters in the papers under the name M.H. Paul, being critical of the party. And they got to find out. And Janet Jagan appointed a two-man committee to discipline me. The two-man committee comprised of Komal Chan and Ralph Ramkaran. And I expected Komal Chan to be the pit bull, because he's Russian trained, he's trade unionist and so. And I expected Ralph Ramkaran to be, more moderate and son, along the mold of his father, Boise. But surprisingly, Ralph Ramkaran was the pit bull. And he was issuing threats to me. By then I was in the fraud squad, and he was telling me that I was harassing party supporters, I was harassing party financiers, and he's going to get me fired. I don't know how to play the game. I don't understand politics, And
so Ralph Ramkaran was telling you that?
Yes, he was telling me that.
And you were working in the police force?
No, I was at the fraud squad in the Ministry of Finance.
The Ministry of Finance has its own fraud squad.
Yeah, we were there.
Is that linked to the police force?
There is a fraud squad in the police force.
No, but that's not linked to the Ministry of Finance fraud squad.
No, the PPP former fraud squad.
Oh, they had their own fraud squad.
To monitor the customs, right? And in the nearly 3 years I was there, revenue raised 300%. Because when they took office from the PNC in 1992, revenue was just like $3 billion. By the time I left, it was $12 billion. Increased threefold while I was there. And
so what do you think are some of the factors for that increase?
Because of my work there. I went after the people who cheated on taxes.
Oh, okay. So
and these people were PP supporters. One of the biggest criminals there was a guy named Dr. Yuli Hanuman. According to Mr. Jagan, don't touch him, but I didn't take the instruction. I didn't go for that. He was a big tax cheater, and I went after him. Right?
You're on camera,
Yes, I'm on camera. I can say that safely,
Okay. Was he?
I could say many things
brought to justice?
But I'm afraid you might be sued if you air this program.
Why? Don't say things that you can't prove, because you're saying it, not me.
Yes. The same Yuli Hanuman, 7 years after, his creditors in England sued him. because he did not pay them for goods supplied to them.
Okay, let us...
And the matter was this, no, this is public.
Okay.
I say it because this is public. It was in the newspapers.
Okay.
Do you know what Yul Halima went to court, and do you know what his defense was? He said that his creditors supplied him with fake invoices so he could cheat the state of Guyana. Therefore, the transaction was null and void. And the court in Guyana upheld his submissions and dismissed the case against the creditors. So he cheated his creditors. He didn't pay them, and he didn't pay the credit duties in Guyana.
Well, those are allegations.
That was in the newspapers.
Yeah, but then the case is dismissed.
Yes, because he said that they gave him fake invoices.
Well, that's
to
a different
supply.
question. We are concerned here that the matter was dismissed.
Yes.
How and why, it's a different issue.
That's what I'm telling you.
Right.
Because he told the court they gave him fake invoices.
Right. Well, he can probably did proof to the court for that to make that decision.
But the point is, he did supply fake invoices.
Well,
he said so in court.
Okay.
And he was a member of parliament for the PPP in those days.
Oh, so that's a part of the corruption.
Yes.
That you want to continue on.
Exactly. They wanted it to continue. They don't want it to touch certain people. They wanted to run after little people. People are importing a couple of cartoons, a couple of crates or so. But the people who are robbing you by the hundreds of millions, you have to leave them because they support the PPP financially.
Oh, so that's why you are working in the Ministry of Finance now, huh?
I was on secondment there at the request of Dr. Asghar Ali, the Senior Minister of Finance.
Right.
And then after Asghar was pressured by importers, he had me removed from the fraud squad. Bar Jagde was very upset.
Bar Jagde was working as junior minister, and Asghar Ali was the senior minister.
Yes.
Okay.
So Asghar had me removed. Bart was very upset. Then Dr. Jagan ordered that I go back there. 3 months had passed. This happened in November 1994. And by January, I was back there. And then you know, they removed Asghar. And then Jagde himself was pressured by business people. And he removed me. Of course, he made all sorts of allegations. But now we can follow the money. Now we can follow the money. We can see who was corrupt and who was not corrupt. So
they actually accuse you of being corrupt?
They never said so officially, but one time he was in New York and we were picketing him. This is like 2003, at the height of the violence against East Indians in Guyana. And we had the largest picketing in New York against a Guyanese personality was conducted. It was winter, it was very cold. We had a couple thousand people picketing Jagdeo.
Thousands?
Yes, several thousands were out there picketing Jagdeo.
Where was that?
It's probably Atlantic Avenue.
Queens?
The owner, it was a place owned by this guy, Horman Singh.
Oh, that's you're
Queens.
talking about by just near to Lefferts Boulevard there.
Yes.
Where they have that royal,
where it was?
Catering hall here now.
So when he went in, he was very upset that I was out there leading the thing, and he said that he dismissed me for corruption. But I can stand a forensic audit, you know. I can withstand a forensic audit. Going back to the time I started to teach, and I started to teach in 1976.
So you were not involved. You want to tell the public here that you were not corrupt?
No, I was not.
Okay.
I was dismissed because I was honest. No. If I was corrupt, they would have kept me there. But I'm glad they dismissed me because I might have become like them. You know? Because I'll tell you something too.
When you say become like them, what you really mean?
Well, everybody can follow the money now. And there's no way that a man can build a $5 million mansion in Guyana on his savings.
What are you talking about?
Well, President Jagdeo, ex-President Jagdeo, built a $5 million mansion in Guyana. They call it, it's Parville 2. And Clement Rohi, the Minister of Home Affairs, said that Jagdeo saved all his money since he started working. So Jagdeo started working in 1988 in Guyana. And since then, he never spent a dime out of his savings. He saved all his money. And that enabled him to build a $5 million mansion.
So what is the problem?
Problem in terms of what?
No, if he save his money and build a house, what's wrong with that?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I've been working since 1976. I can come nowhere near that amount of money to build a house.
Oh, you mean if you add his salaries up for that period, it's not 5 million?
No, I don't think so. You think it's 5 million?
No, well, I'm not. I don't know what his salary was. I don't know what his salary was. Maybe you know better.
Yes.
So you're suspicious about that.
Well, I think everybody's suspicious of it, not only me.
Okay.
You know.
Now, Malcolm, can we move on a little bit into the other questions because we have limited time for this interview. Let us talk about your political activism later on. You said about the PVP period when you were there, then your job as a fraud specialist in the Ministry of Finance.
Yes.
And then now you moved on after that to become involved in what?
Well, I migrated to the States in 1990, at the end of 1995. And since then I moved on with my life. I became qualified as an engineering technician. I have many certifications in concrete and in steel and in surface preparations, in soil, etc. So I work as a bridge construction inspector. That's what I've been doing.
That's here in New York City?
New York, yes.
Okay.
And I make do, you know.
Right. Oh, that's a good job. And
yes, it's
well-paid job. So you have a lot of money now. You're a rich man. You're no longer a working class man like used to be in the PPP.
Well, I'm American working class. I'm American working class, you know.
Okay, so I understand, participated in some of the elections monitoring in Guyana. Can you please tell our viewers a little bit about your experiences as a participant of the electoral processes in Guyana?
Well, my first experience at monitoring elections would have been in 1978 when there was a referendum. And I worked as a PPP polling agent. That would have been at Margaret Root School at Port Dry in West Bank, Demerara. Then in 2001 elections, I was the election agent for Roar. So I got to monitor the elections in most of the country. And in the 2011 elections, I monitored the elections.
That's the last elections.
The last elections. So I was very involved in monitoring elections for APNU.
What did you actually do there?
You talking about the 2011 elections?
Yeah, the 2011. Let's talk about the most recent ones.
Okay. On the morning, I went around visiting polling places on the West Bank, Demerara. I went into Canals Polar, number 1 and 2. I went down West Bank. I went into Windsor Forest, West Dem School. I have to say that I noticed that the turnout of PP voters were low, whereas the turnout in African areas, traditional PNC areas, the turnout is very high. So I was a bit surprised when I learned later in the day that the turnout was high, because my question is, how could it be high? I didn't see voters lining up. Normally on elections day, you'll have voters lining up at the school to vote. That was not the case. And later in the evening, you had reports coming in of the PVP by 11 a.m. the day, going around with loudspeakers in places like Eccles. I could say Eccles, East Bank, Demerara, telling people to go out and vote because they realized that the turnout was low.
But you're not supposed to campaign during an election day.
You're not supposed to do that.
So how is that allowed?
Well, they did it. I mean, look, yesterday, Saturday was voting for the discipline services in Guyana, and President Rambatar was there. He went to the polling place as president. He's not supposed to do that.
He's commander-in-chief also.
Yes, but,
Maybe
he doesn't vote he's not a soldier, so he can't go there to vote.
Oh, I thought he went to vote, okay.
No, he can't go to vote. He's not a soldier.
But there's another minister there with him, Minister Frank Anthony.
Yeah, who definitely also is not a soldier, so he couldn't have been going there to vote. So they should not have been there in the first place.
So would that be considered, let's say, voter intimidation?
You can say it could be, but I can tell you they're not supposed to be there.
They're not supposed to be there, okay.
Yes,
I don't know. So that's something for the political parties to look into, and probably the Guyana Elections Commission and the police force.
Yes.
So Malcolm, did you observe any kind of anomaly there? Any kind of
okay,
let's say on the
day, on election day,
okay,
on election day itself, there was a report coming out of Timeri, a report sent in by a APNU polling agent. And I personally spoke with the polling agent because he reported that there was a group of PP supporters, mainly youths, who were engaged in multiple voting. I think the name of the school was St. Mary's Primary School, located at Timeri. So I spoke with the polling agent, and he said that at the school there were 4 polling places. You know, the school building is a large building, and there are four polling places there. Each polling place is supposed to have a part of the list. The list is supposed to be split in 4 parts. So at no time should you have a case where one polling place has a list with has the complete list. The list is split alphabetically. At polling place 1, it could be from A to D. So polling place 1 cannot have from F to L or from L to Q. Oh. It can only have that section of the list. So a voter in that area, his name, when he goes to that place, his name appears one time only, and that's at the place where he's supposed to vote. But at that particular venue, each polling place had the same list. They had the master list, so to speak. So you had a situation where a voter's name would appear 4 times because each polling place has a list with his name on it. So he said he caught them the 3rd time. He caught them voting a 3rd time.
So there was rigging.
Now get this. The presiding officer agreed that they voted, and she said that she will take care of it at the end of the day. But at the end of the day, it could not have been taken care of because how is she going to take care of it? The votes are already in the box. She can't open the box and take out 20 votes. How will you identify which 20 votes to put in there? You understand?
Yes. So there was rigging.
On that day also, yes.
Okay.
I'll say there was fraud. On that day also, at that particular place, it was found that the indelible ink, when you dip your finger in the ink, it did not stain your finger right away, especially you wiped it off. It took a while for it to be stained.
Can you, 1 second, Malcolm, just want to interject here. Can you please tell our viewers on ITV a little bit of the ink, why they use the ink? Because in America here, we are not accustomed to that. So please explain so that they can understand what you mean by the ink, please.
Well,
briefly.
When you cast your vote in Guyana, when you finish casting the vote and you appear again before the presiding officer, he holds your finger and he dips it in a bottle of indelible ink, in the stain, purple stain. And the stain is supposed to stay on there for a couple of days. It's very hard to get a stain off. But if the stain takes a while to kick in, meaning you dip your finger in the ink and it takes like 15-20 minutes to actually become stain, well, then you can move from a polling place within the same building and vote 4 times. Especially if you have chemicals to wipe your finger so it looks clean. So that I can tell you, I personally investigated that report. Later, on the same day.
No, you said you investigated.
Yes.
So what was the conclusion of your investigation?
That there was multiple voting by PPP supporters, mainly 20 young men were being taken around in vehicles to engage in multiple voting. That was my personal experience. I can testify to that in a court of law.
Oh. Can you tell our viewers if you feel that that would be the case in the upcoming elections next week, Monday?
I strongly think so. The only way the PP can win this election is by engaging in fraud.
Why do you think so?
Because I see a shift amongst traditional PP supporters. I was there a few weeks ago doing house campaign. I distributed
Hold on a second. Who are you campaigning about? I thought you lived in America.
Yeah, but I went there and I campaigned for the coalition.
Oh, the coalition, okay.
Yes.
Can you explain to our viewers what the coalition is about?
Well, the coalition is a group of parties, mainly the AFC and the APNU, that have come together to campaign under one banner, so to speak. Because the Constitution of Guyana requires that for you to have an alliance, for you to have a coalition, it has to be formed before the elections. The Constitution of Guyana does not permit post-election alliances or post-election coalition. So any coalition, you have to do it before the elections. So I think that is one of the main reasons for the alliance between the AFC and the APNU.
What do you think of their chances in the upcoming elections, from your observation since you were there only recently?
Yes. The chances are very good. I'm heartened to see that many PP supporters are no longer with the PPP. I have to say that there is no enthusiasm among the PPP supporters, the traditional PP supporters. There's a total lack of enthusiasm.
Why do you think this is happening?
The corruption.
When you say the corruption, what exactly you want to tell? Can you be more specific, please?
Okay, the PPP has been in power for 23 years. And 23 years is a very long time. People think they have been there too long, they've become power drunk, and they've become corrupt. The corruption stares you in the face. There's no if and but about it.
Can you give us some examples of that?
Okay. I did work in the West Demerara, and it is well publicized that the Minister of Housing, Orphan Ali, it's well publicized what he has acquired since he started his political career as a minister in the government. So I'm not going to go into that, but I was in Zealot Housing Scheme, Zealot South.
Where is that? Where is that? On the West Bank?
No, Zealot is technically East Bank Esquibo.
East Bank is, okay.
East Bank Esquibo, yes. I was in that scheme, and there's a house. It's not a large house. I would say it's a regular size house, but this house is straddling 2 house lots. So that's what catches your attention. This house is straddling 2 house lots. So you make an inquiry and you find out that the recipient of the 2 house lots is the cousin of Orphan Ali, the Minister of Housing. You know? So you ask, well, how come the person got 2 house lots? And you hear, well, when they only got 1 house lot, but when they started to build, the contractor made a mistake and he put the foundation over in the other house lot, and he started building on both house lots. And by the time he realized the mistake, he couldn't change it, and the house was built. You know, all kind of nonsense like that to hear. But long and short, the guy gave his cousin 2 house lots when everybody is entitled to 1 and got 1. So, and that's a small case of corruption. That's at a very minor level.
What is a big case then?
Well, I would think the biggest case would be with the former President Bar Jagdeo and his $5 million US dollars mansion.
But he claims that there's no corruption there. Well, how can you...
He claims that he saved all his money. That,
yes,
you know.
So what's wrong with that?
Well, you know, Dr. Jadoopat, you are the economist. You tell me how that can be.
No, the man
has... Tell me if it's plausible.
No, but if a man has a house, a big house, that doesn't mean he's corrupt.
I know, but this is not just a house. This is a house that real estate people say value $5 million US dollars.
His friends probably give him some money. His friends probably give him millions of dollars. What's wrong with that if my friend give me a lot of millions of dollars and I build a big mansion?
Well, yes, you're right. You're right. Maybe his friends did help him.
So how can you say that, you know, because the man has a mansion, he is corrupt.
No, because that is in the public view.
Okay.
You see that and you know it.
So what else do you know then?
About the corruption there?
Yes.
Well, let's look at the Marriott Hotel, the most recent project, which they are touting as progress. You know, they have spent nearly $60 million of Guyanese taxpayers' money. And whoever, we still don't know who the investors are. These are so-called secret investors who will put up $8 million and get to control the business. How can that be? You think that can happen in the USA? I mean, you're living here.
No, well, I'm not going to answer your questions. I thought you're the one answering questions. So you are suspicious about the way in which things have been getting done in Guyana in terms of investments. So you are probably of the opinion, and maybe you have reasons to substantiate your opinion, that kickbacks are being given because these projects are being done in this manner. Is that so?
I would think so, yes, definitely. And also, you have to look at the drug trade, you know.
Okay, tell us something more about that, because you were involved in the fraud squad there.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
So please tell our viewers what you know about...
That the decisions they made in 1992 when they took power by keeping Larry Lewis there as the police commissioner and by not effecting any changes in the security apparatus had dire consequences for us. One of them being the flourishing of the drug trade. Remember, in the latter years of the PNC under Desmond Hoyt, they were jailing people. One of the notorious drug traders, a man named Earl Butcher, also known as Taps, and a big-time criminal, and a PNC supporter, but Hoyt had him prosecuted and jailed for drug trafficking. And he got released when the PP got into power. And Janet Jagan intervened and had him released. I know this because the man had a huge party, and he was praising Granny Janet for releasing him from prison.
That reminds me of another incident. This guy, Rabbi Washington,
yes,
now deceased, he was the head of the House of Israel that used to go around beating up people, breaking up,
kicking down people's doors,
strikes and kicking down people's doors, whatever. Yeah. But he was a notorious guy, and Desmond Hoyt also put him in prison. He was jailed.
Hoyt
and he was pardoned when the PPP came to power. He was released.
He was released. Mrs. Jagan said he was an American freedom fighter who was misused by Barnum, and so she had him pardoned and released from jail.
So those are two big-time criminals, known
criminals, yes,
the Guyanese as criminals,
yes,
publicly committed crimes,
yes,
and they were pardoned by the PPP.
Yes, yes. But there was an active, Hoyt was actively, his policy was to eradicate any drug problem that was arising in Guyana. And the drugs people had to be, they were living a very low, they were keeping a very low profile. But they were there. The money launderers were there, the drug traffickers were there. But they weren't allowed to flourish because they were being caught and prosecuted. Unfortunately, because of the policies of the PPP post-92, these money launderers and drug traffickers flourished in Guyana. Now, this is not only me telling you this, but the former police commissioner, Leroy Brommel, when he retired, he gave an interview with the Kaiecho News. And he said that in the early 90s, he was a young officer attached to the police narcotics branch. And he charged a man for possession of marijuana and other drugs. And he said the police commissioner, Larry Lewis, came down on him and roasted him and asked him how dare he arrest that man? How dare he arrest a drug trafficker? And Brommel said that he was transferred to Berbice as punishment for arresting the drug trafficker. That's coming from a former police commissioner, not Marksman Harripaul, saying that about Larry Lewis.
He said that in the newspaper?
He said that. It's in the Kaiecho News, in the interview.
Wow. What are other incidents you would like to share with our viewers here today? Of corruption, of, you know, whatever you want to talk about.
Well, the corruption thing is all pervading in Guyana. from top to bottom. I mean, every project they do, it's like they ask themselves, how can we steal some money from this project? And having asked themselves, how can we steal money, they go about getting these grandiose projects going, like the Amelia Falls, you know, FIP Motilar cut off $8 million from that project. They have the Marriott Hotel.
So hold on a second. You mentioned cut off. Let's get the specifics here. Cut off.
Yes.
$8 million from that project. Can you tell our viewers what you mean by that?
Well, he got a contract to build a road. And as we all know by now, the man never built a road, doesn't have any experience in building a road. And he never completed the road, but he was paid. He also got a license to build the Amelia Falls project. He never built such a project before, has no experience in it. Then he sold the license to someone else and made a profit on it. So, you know, money was being made, but the project has not even got started, and people are making money off of it.
How did FIP Motilal appear in Guyana? He's not a Guyanese, or he is a Guyanese?
He's Guyanese, I think, and he went there and...
He lives in the United States?
He lives in Florida.
In Florida, okay.
Yeah, but he went to Guyana and...
Who invited him?
I don't know who invited him, but he got in contact with the Prime Minister, and he started to move around with the Prime Minister, with the President Bar Jagdeo at the time, and he was floating these ideas, you know, and that's how he got in, you know.
Okay.
You know, talk about corruption, look at the Prime Ministerial candidate, Miss Elizabeth Harripaul. Prime Minister Sam Hines introduced some investors to Harripaul's son, some guy named Pollard, and they gave him $3 million to put into the project, some gold mining project, and the guy has conned these people. He hasn't paid them a cent up to now. So much so that they have taken him to court to recoup their money. So at that level, at the Prime Minister,
so that's the current prime ministerial candidate for the People's Progressive Party,
yes.
Civic.
Yes.
Contesting this current election.
Yes.
So she's a big name. She's Prime Minister.
She guaranteed the $3 million loan. And her son agreed to repay the investors, and she guaranteed it.
Oh.
Mind you, she was a public servant at the time. So I don't know how a public servant can guarantee $3 million loan, but she did.
Maybe they have special arrangements.
Yes.
Maybe Jagdeo lent her some money.
I don't know. I really don't know.
Malcolm, we are coming towards the end of our interview. Now, I know you have a lot more to say, but in brief, can you please address our ITV audience with your message before the upcoming elections in Guyana next Monday, May the 11th, 2015. This is your opportunity, sir, for you to tell the viewers, advise them from your perspective, whatever you want. Please, sir.
Yes, thank you. Well, I think the PPP has been in power for too long. 23 years is a long time. They've become power drunk, and they've become absolutely corrupt in their ways. And let me just use a most recent example where Dr. Barry Ramsaran, the Minister of Health, was so-called relieved of his duties by President Donald Ramotar. And he was relieved of duties because Dr. Barry Ramsaran had abused a female activist. He told the woman he would slap her, he would get her stripped and stuff like that. Now, I say this because I know Dr. Barry Ramsaran personally. I've known him since the 1970s. We were very close friends in the latter 70s and in the 1980s, the latter 1980s and early 1990s. And I know him to be a totally different person. He is a very humble person. He was a very caring person and a very caring doctor when he came back from Russia. I know that he spent his own money to buy drugs for patients in Berbice back in those days. So I can say what kind of person he was then. But after 20 years in power, we see him here threatening a female, a little petite woman who I happen to know personally. All she did was ask him a simple question is, he's Minister of Health, what is he doing at the court? and he said that he would slap her, he would get women to strip her. That was his response. And that, to my mind, shows the level of power drunkenness on the part of PPP people. And I urge you to urge your relatives back home to vote against the PPP and to vote for the coalition, the AFC and the APNU. We need a change of government in Guyana, and we need it fast.
Thank you very much, Malcolm, for that interview. Once again, on behalf of our cameraman, Mr. Ravi, and our producer, Prakash, and the management and staff of ITV, we want to say thank you for coming to our program here inside Guyana. Thank you for watching. This is yours truly, Dr. Rudy Jadoopat.